Hello and welcome to this edition of BizWatch. I'm Qin Yi. 2 U.S. senators who visited China to lobby for a higher renminbi have returned to Washington. After meeting a range of government heads in major Chinese cities, they postponed plans to introduce legislation which would punish Chinese exports with tariffs. Li Zhuanmiao finds out where the proposed bill fits into the U.S.-China relationship and its effectiveness as a bargaining chip.
3 days before the scheduled vote to place 27.5% punitive tariffs on Chinese exports, Senators Charles Schumer and Lindsey Graham decided to delay it to September. The postponement is believed to be closely linked with the senators' maiden tour to China and corresponding discussions with top Chinese officials. At a press conference in Shanghai towards the end of their visit, the senators remarked on their observations of RMB reform.
I am optimistic from this visit that the Chinese government's policies, at least recently, show their willingness to embrace reform.
What we've seen, what I am convinced of, is now that the Chinese government and the American government agree that the currency should float. It is in the 5-year plan.
The Schumer-Graham bill reflects constituent belief in many U.S. states that China suppresses the value of renminbi to give Chinese goods a price advantage. Those concerns have grown along with the U.S. trade deficit with China, which hit a new high in 2005. However, Chinese and U.S. statisticians differ when it comes to trade data, and economists see different reasons for the renminbi's value.
They will look at how much the Chinese workers are paid and how much the same thing is being paid in the United States and work that out. But there are two things we have to be aware. Number one is that the composition of the manufacturing cost and part of the transaction cost is not entirely based on wages and salaries. There are many other factors which are even more significant. And secondly is that there's a big difference between the United States and China. In China, wages and salaries make a much smaller proportion of the production cost. In the United States, it's much bigger proportion.
Professor Zhou's career in Sino-U.S. relations has twice included visits to the U.S. as a congressional fellow in the 80s and 90s. He says such a bill is usually regarded as a signal from the U.S. government.
Anything that happens in the Congress is politics. And of course, these two bills, and the bills by these two gentlemen is no exception.
We could have had this passed a year ago. And obviously, our preference, and we've stated this repeatedly, is to get the two governments to agree to a reasonable timetable. We believe that the bill has helped move us along so that it's closer to happening.
Economists cite a dangerous precedent to the Schumer-Graham bill, the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act in June 1930, which raised the U.S. tariffs to historically high levels and was partly blamed for exacerbating the Great Depression. The economists say a bill to influence the RMB using punishing tariffs would damage the Sino-U.S. trade, and they recommend alternative solutions.
If needs be, we are trying to buy more things from the United States, especially the so-called high-tech goods. Actually, many of the high-tech goods are available to China, but through some other markets. And also, we will welcome more Chinese companies to visit or to invest here in the United States, so that not just on the current account side, but on the capital account side now, there will be more money going back to the United States to help to balance the international payment.
China has already pledged and acted to make its currency more flexible. The yuan is now at a 12-year high after gaining more than 3% since its revaluation last July. Analysts say President Hu Jintao's state visit to the United States in mid or late April will also play an active part in enhancing mutual trust and expanding common understanding on the RMB mechanism and trade issues. Li Zhuanmiao for BizWatch.